Okay, back again. Let's talk continuity. Because I just finished watching or rewatching an old multi-part retrospective on Atop the Fourth Wall about the um, the Teen Titans and the legacy prior to the New 52. Everybody's got a comic that introduced them to comics, and in the case of Lewis Lovehog, some of you may know as Linkara. Um, that was JLA Titans, the Technos Imperative. And that's what the comic that really got him interested in comics. And it led him to his favorite comic series, which was the Titans, which was some of the classic Titans coming together and forming a new team. And that's what ultimately brought him into comics and why he's not only a comic reviewer today, but has also worked on some of his own comics. A webcomic called Lightbringer and a mini series that you've been trying to find artists to help complete called Revolution of the Mask. If you're watching this on my website, you should be able to see a review of that. And I really would like to see him get that comic finished because the first two issues were put up online, and they're good. They were very enjoyable, and I would love for him to get to finish that so I can see how it ends. And I know that's a story that he really wants to tell. So he's not just a uh, reviewer; he is also a creator. In fact, he fix the camera. In fact, a lot of the stories that he um, does as part of his show were based on his love of comics. The show may be about making fun of bad comics and pointing out why these comics are good, but he does honestly love comics and does at times discuss comics that he actually likes. On his current show right now, he's going through another one of his Secret Origins month, which goes into the origins of various characters. He just did Supergirl today. But I'm watching this, and one thing he said at the end was he was talking about how over 40 years of continuity have been thrown out for the New 52 because while the first issues originally acted like the comics came before were still in continuity, like they keep trying to tell us some things were for Batman and Green Lantern. Now all of a sudden they're not. When you got to the collected trades, and that bothered him because he had become invested in these characters and this continuity and all these years. It was stories that excited him. It got his juices going. It got him interested in comics. There were characters that he come to care about because when you're writing stories, you have to make the characters worth caring about. And if you're doing a long-term comic series like Teen Titans or the Titans, uh, eventually you're going to get interested in these characters in their lives. So when somebody comes along who writes them poorly, they get upset. I mean, it's not hopefully not as important to them as their own family and friends, but it still means something to them. So when continuity gets tossed out, it's just annoying because now you cannot see any more adventures with these characters, like your favorite television series ends. You can't see any more stories with these characters. You can go back and rewatch the old ones, or maybe see episodes or read comics that you've never seen before. And with sites like Comixology, that's a lot easier. Or beyond that, going to a wiki and getting the summary. Um, but otherwise, you can still follow these characters, but you're getting invested in them because you've been following them for so long. And there's kind of a thought that uh, long continuity dissuades new readers, and in some cases that is true. I've seen that happen, but at the same time, a good story can draw you in. That's why they create jump-on points for people who really are don't want to get bogged down in the continuity. Well, here's a good point to start. Here's where you'll get the essential information that you need. And if somebody wants to bring another character back, if they do it in a way that rewards long-term readers, but also doesn't lose new readers, then that's the way to go. But there seems to be this war on continuity lately, and a lot of it happens in DC. And I think, and I've always had a bunch of reasons on why I thought that was true. Um, he who controls the origin controls the power, and now they want to rewrite the universe for their perspective, their point of view, in their image, as it were. And it's kind of thing. It's kind of an ego moment. It's kind of a thing too. Is like they didn't care about all this years of continuity. They wanted to write their own stories. But I've heard writers talk about being bogged down by continuity. That's bull. I'm sorry. Doesn't mean you can't write the stories you want to tell. It means that you just have to respect what came before and the writers who came before you. If you can't do that, then you shouldn't be on this title. If you're only on this title because you like the name or because you think there's some interesting ideas you can play with, go make your own comic. Nowadays, it's so easy to do. Mike Norton, who does a lot of uh, big name comic work, still has his own webcomic, Battle Pug, that he creates himself, which he's free to do all of his own ideas on. Mark Miller can work on something like Kick-Ass and still work on something like Fantastic Four. It's possible nowadays to take and do the stories you want without ruining the continuity and annoying the fans that came before. And if you don't want to work on those titles, why are you? In the retrospective, Linkara talked about an editor who came in on the Titans who didn't like the Titans, didn't understand the Titans, didn't do any research on the Titans. And this is, and this may have been the day before wikis, but it's not like you couldn't go through the history of just that one comic. And he's like, well, what's the character motive? What's the team mission statement? What's their motivation? Man, that necessarily new one. They've gone long enough without it, but he kept making all these changes, and it was not in favor of continuity. Some of the characters ended up being rewritten to be terrible people, and you're going to tick off the fans. And now none of those stories are in continuity anymore. None of them matter. The only thing matters is what the current DC people want. And I don't think that's very good, because it kind of, at the same time, you keep throwing continuity away with reboots and everything. I've seen just as many people who are upset about these things because they're like, well, why should I invest myself in this universe? It's going to disappear in like 10 years, which is what DC did with all its minor reboots and now this major reboot. It's what they've been doing ever since Crisis on Infinite Earth, which is a whole other can of worms. So, there are going to be people bothered by continuity. There are going to be people who demand continuity. And I think there has to be a middle ground to make everybody happy. And because otherwise you're losing part of a potential audience. You're throwing away years of support for people who may or may not be interested in what you're going to come up with. And it just kind of makes you wonder, why should I care if somewhere down the line it's going to be gone and replaced with something completely different? The Superman that I've enjoyed for years is now gone. Like, it's almost completely gone. And the same is true for people who enjoyed other stories. I came in around the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age stories will never happen again. Those characters are gone. They killed off Supergirl and then rebooted Superman's continuity anyway, so that was completely pointless. And the stories that I grew up with are gone. I can't see those characters again. I can't read their adventures anymore, because what you've got left are a bunch of namesakes. I got invested in these worlds, and they don't exist anymore. I'm not saying never reboot continuity. If your universe has been gone long enough, to use an example from right here among Art Soundoff, Jersey Droz rebooted the Front because he wanted to reapproach these characters in a different way, and that's fine. It's not something that he's been doing consistently for decades, compared to Eric Larson, who's been doing Savage Dragon uh, since the 90s, and it's been just him on it the whole time. So when he wanted to get Savage Dragon back in the police uniform, um, he did it organically. He worked it in so that the story would come out and go to the direction he wanted. And I think that's the way to go. Respect the people who came before you. Respect the universe you're creating, because you're not starting over from scratch unless you just throw away everything like DC did, or like Marvel did with the Spider Marriage. Don't throw everything away, because people have been invested in this. You are not. This is not your universe. If it is your universe, then fine. Like I said, jersey in the front. But if you're the caretaker of somebody else's universe, of somebody else's story, if you don't respect what came before, even if you try, you can do your own thing, but if you don't respect what came before, you're going to tick off a lot of people and lose a lot of support. You can keep stories going and bring in new readers if you know what you're doing. If you make the jump on points, if you make something that's interesting enough that people may drop in the middle of it and want to go back. It's all possible, especially nowadays when you have wikis, when you have Comixology, when you have all these other sites, you have review shows, you have everything out there. You can keep track of what's going on. Just watch the comic historian. They always look at story arcs or short stories, so you can keep track of what's going on. That's how I've been following the DC universe right now, because and the only reason I even care is because of my website. But so I have to at least keep up to date somehow. But continuity is not your enemy. As a fan, there's always a way to come in on it and get caught up in it. As a writer, there's always a chance to tell good stories with the characters you have. You may not give you the freedom you want, but go make a webcomic. Go make an independent comic. You can create stuff without ruining what came before. And when you don't care about what came before, this is why even before the New 52, I didn't think I really wanted to work on Superman. Much as I would love to write a Superman story, the problem is, why bother? It's not going to matter. If some writer's going to come along down the line and throw out all the work that I did, everything that I came up with, what's the point? I can just create a whole new character and do something different. Maybe I don't get the name recognition of having worked on Superman, or I don't get the draw that Superman brings, but the point is, if I want to tell a story that interests me, then I want it to matter. And right now, years of continuity no longer matter. And that's just too bad. If you're creating your own work, do what you want with it. But when you're given stewardship of a legacy, respect what came before. And even with your own work, you need to respect what came before. Because if you don't, what was the point of creating that universe in the first place? I'm over time again. If you want to follow anybody else doing the Art Sound Off, you can go to Twitter and with the account Art Sound Off, at Art Sound Off, or the hashtag Art Sound Off. It's either way you can follow us and see what we're discussing. But like I said, I am over time and happy creating.